Okay, I think they're just about ready. Actually, one second. I'll do... Yeah, I can use that. Too easy. Alright. So, to start off with, we have... Probably should have done that so early. So let me get a drink. Gotta get me casting voice on. Alright, so we've got an equal footing game here between Vindicator and Borg. So, starting in the bottom corner of the map, and we've got equal footing today, we've got Vindicator as the blue Norse player. And spawning in the top corner of the map today as the red Persian player, we've got Borg. So, looks like both of them have just found their first hunts. Oops, I'm trying to be too quick with the camera movements. And it seems like Vindicator was able to make use of the North Scouts, the dual Scouts already managing to lock down 3 hunts relatively quickly. Meanwhile Borg, he's found his first hunt. Looks like he's going to try and push out an early barracks. I think it'd be pretty unusual if neither of these players opted for barracks first, just knowing the way they are. See them both get distance gathering the wood, so that's usually a really big tell that they're going to go for the early barracks, because obviously otherwise they probably just prefer to gather off the berries or off the hunt or off the trees next to the hunt if they were going to build a second storehouse. Generally. And there's a bit of a fight here for one of Borg's sheep, but he manages to defend it, and Vindicator loses his range scout, so there'll be no building watchtowers for him off that scout. Outposts, and those outposts are actually 100 wood, as you can see, because they're actually a production facility. They got the Norse Bulldogs, really overpowered unit. Nah, it's not that overpowered. It's a pretty cool unit. Doesn't cost any population. Really cheap. 50 food. Quick to build. And yeah, they're pretty quick. As you can see, the North Scout, he's can build the barracks himself, which Vindicator was already making use of. And Vindicator, as we can see, has got some early spearmen. Meanwhile, his Persian opponent, Borg, he has got a Sparbara on the way. In fact, he's already got another Sparbara out in the field. And here we go, he's actually queuing up another 3, so he's looking to get up to 5 of them. And it looks to be a defense initially. The beauty being Persian as well, any damage he takes on any of his units, if he's got A10, he can look at healing up from H1. And it's a fairly cheap tech. That makes it overpowered. So, we've got a couple of spearmen. Vindicator's moving out now, and he's actually taking loom behind this, so this is pretty smart. Trying to get an early loom. He's not actually housed, so it's not as if he's just panic loomed either. Seems pretty planned. He wants to be able to defend, because if he locks up a bit of resources trying to be aggressive here, it's going to delay his aging up, push back his ability to get cavalry. So he's going to want loom just to give him that extra bit of tankiness. As we can see, Borg, Sparbara and Vindicator's spearmen run past each other, but the Sparbara, it's 4 to 6. So with that A10 being researched, Borg's villagers just dancing around. I think he might be fairly reasonably safe here. Looks like he's fairly confident to just try and micro his way through this, so fairly smart play by him. able to really minimize the amount of downtime he's got. Rather than trying to go back to the berries, just tries to fight it out. He's got the Spybar, the Spearman advantage here, killing one of the Spearmen. And picks off another as well. Those wolves, a bit unfortunately placed for Vindicator there. I think the Spearmen were taking a bit of extra damage with that. Spybar actually heading over here, and one's already on the hunt of Vindicator, so this is good play as well. Vindicator microing back the individual damaged villager, so it's safe, but it looks like he's going to lose this Spearman. Rallied it off a bit behind the others, taking advantage of the fact that it's snared, that it'll lock up all the other units targeting it, and his army can just run away. So really good micro play by both players so far. Really, really nice Age of Empires online play. That was a bit of a fight going on in Vindicator's base. Borg gonna try and pick off some villages, try and force some pullbacks here as well, and slow down the economy of Vindicator, but he's not having much of it. Might lose the Spearman over here, but he managed to get out of that with... Spearman even makes it out alive, although this isn't so good for Vindicator in a sense, because it does lock up a population with a unit that's only got 3 health, so it's only going to get 1 hit on it, and Vindicator's probably going to look at trying to sacrifice it now, rather than trying to take a hit on another low unit in one of these trades. Just because it's, you know, 3 health versus whatever damage it'll deal. And we see H2 on both players. It's like Borg getting a bit of extra stone. I mean, Vindicator getting a bit of extra stone, sorry. But not too much extra. Borg as well. He's got his stone gathering at 125 over actually, so they're both a little bit sloppy back based on that. But I think because of the early pressure game that they've managed to try and put on one another, that's probably to be sort of expected. Anything below the absolute top level, because I mean these guys are sort of the next category of players. They're both exceptional players, crazy micro, really good compositional understanding of the game, map understanding. And so Borg as well, just trying to get a little bit of harass, bit of scouting information on what's going on in Vindicator's base. Just see if this makes it a little bit less laggy. No, it's still pretty laggy. And I suppose that's sort of the problem when one of us lives in Australia, one of us lives in Brazil, one of us lives in South Africa, so you got 3 different continents worth of people involved in this game. Half the units of Vindicator's actually falling right now. He's taking his stables, getting his raiders in production. He wants to be able to deal a bit of damage to Borg's economy behind this, but Borg, very similar situation. He's gone for his Asabara out of his stables. So both of them going for barracks stables. And then Borg opting for the range. Being the Persian player, he's going to want to get... Whoops, I'll try not to be too shaky with the camera. Try and get some of his bowmen out, because they'll deal lots and lots of damage to the throwing axemen. In the meantime, Persian player won't be able to go as heavy on his infantry as per se going into the mid game, because the throwing axemen will trade really well against the Spybar, unlike the Spearmen where it's a pretty even sort of trade, and then the Spybar are just easy to mass. So we've already got a couple of raiders coming out for Vindicator, only a pair of them, but it's enough to do a little bit of damage. I don't think he's really intending to do much here other than just see what his opponent's got. He knows there's a couple of Asabara now, so I think that's probably a little bit accidental, really. Because the Asabara are going to be able to take the fight against the Raiders, although the Raiders, they are the faster cavalry, and they're going to be better at killing villages and range units and that sort of thing, so he's going to have to be careful. Borg of Vindicator's use of the Raiders, and he's got a really good number of them here now. But meanwhile, not to be outdone himself, Borg has a good number of Asabara, so he's going to look at putting some damage on at the map. It's really nice seeing this, both players going for their cavalry flanks, Around other side of the maps, nice yin-yang sort of play. Yeah. Two fairly evenly matched competitors. And they're both on the civs. I'd really want to see them play. So Borg, same thing, sniping that outside storehouse, which by now is little more than a watch post. Vindicator trying to deal some damage to the houses, just bait out his opponent, see what he's got, back off again. Just both of them. Largely just going to try and snipe little things they can, and just size each other up, look for weaknesses in army compositions and try and take advantage of it. And then just try and push into one another, going into age 3, I think. I don't think either of them is going to be too willing to give themselves, give the other player the opportunity to get to age 3 or 4 with terrible ease. It looks like they're both prepared to take fights, because Vindicator taking his melee damage upgrades, considering that even the throwing axemen will benefit from that, considering that they've got the infantry tag, or melee infantry tag, so to speak. And he's even getting scale mail upgrade to defend against everything Borg's going to have, except for his archers. At this stage he'll have spearmen or sparbara, which he's got both of, and the asabara, so all those units are going to be hitting a little bit less harder than Vindicators, a little bit less harder into Vindicators in a couple of minutes, well in about a minute, but I think Borg might have pushed just in time to deal a good amount of damage here. He's got a nice count of the spearmen and sparbara, the bowmen. So, Vindicator his raids come back now. The raiding party is back at home, and they're going to be able to wipe this force up. So Vindicator having sort of to defend right in his front door, but able to do so with fairly minimal losses. Borg, on the other hand, he's lost a good portion of his army now, so it's going to be a bit tough for him to hold out from here. Vindicator, he's still got so many of these raiders, he's probably going to try and get the lower ones sort of to the right side of this pack. Try to mix in the full health ones in the middle of the pack there. Pretty smart of him, wants to be able to get a couple of extra hits off on the range. Borg is trying to hightail it out of there as safely as he can. Get a couple of really good snipes on the throwing axeman, which he's doing. And he's really trying to fight the raiders with the asabara as soon as he can, because the raiders, they don't really want to be fighting them, and they want to have an easy time as possible getting on the range. But it looks like they're going to have that sort of time now, because it just doesn't seem to be enough for Borg right at the front door at the moment. There's really only asabara left at the moment, and units that are just popping out straight away. So if Vindicator can keep up this parade push, I don't know if Borg's going to be able to hold here, but in saying that, it looks like Borg's doing a wonderful job at holding on his doorstep. He's got a good number of raids still pumping out. Good spread of them, still trying to focus down the melee, the infantry where he can get that bonus damage, and now he's pulled a couple of them back into the field of the age head, so looks like neither player is really managing to hit from any other flank at the moment. They're both really trying to push through this flank here, and right now it's a lot of units for Vindicator. Borg, he's really only got what's popping out of his production facility each rotation, and then it's just dying as the next lot pops out. It's not looking too good for him at the moment, because Vindicator's even managing to break away with 2 sets of raiders, actually. And if he manages to get a couple of good kills here, this could be the death knell. But Borg, not to be outdone, is massing up his stuff wonderfully behind this. Got a really good farm eco. He's got 16 farms cluttered in this little tiny segment here. He's doing a great job of defending. This tree line is still just holding out. I wouldn't be surprised if he's been microing individual villages around, just to try and minimize how quickly he's chopping through each segment. Right now, he might lose this armory before the upgrade kicks in. And he does lose the armory. He's still trying to build up in the back of his base, but where is the back of his base? there's no safe sort of side from Vindicator, and certainly not on equal footing. It's being attacked from multiple fronts. There's a lot of villagers falling. Well, a lot of villagers being attacked down at the top side. It's a bit slow, really, with the multiple aid tents. But right now, some more houses of Borgs are falling. And cavalry are really forcing Borg to have to spread his army well, and he's just chasing down a couple of raiders. Well, there's a lot falling down inside his base. There's so much infantry here, but the archers are all over this side of his army. They're sort of well protected by the raiders at the moment, but Vindicator, he's peeled them away because he wants to try and maybe hit the villagers again, I think. He's going to try and see if he can hold off with a throwing axeman versus the Asabara, and a lot of the bowmen are sitting idle for a sec, but Borg's doing a great job at saving a bunch of villagers there. Phenomenal trade from Vindicator here, but Borg is doing everything he can to build up behind this. He's maintaining even population at the moment, so managing to defend really, really well here. Man, what a crazy skirmish that was. Borg held out really, really well. Vindicator actually backing off with a small population disadvantage here and quite a big worker disadvantage. Borg's economy has actually been crazy good behind this. He mustn't have missed a single villager produced, and to come out basically 15, 16 villages ahead. Vindicator's actually cut his villagers for the time being. He wants to try and max out, I think, and try and push into his opponent before the Persian player can really make use of his next tier of tech. Borg's actually walling up in the meantime. He wants to try and block raiders from coming in from any angle other than this one here, so he can take a good fight. He's got a good number of spears here to deal with the raiders, but he's not careful. The raiders are actually rallying straight past at the moment. Oh, and it looks like Borg pushed off another gold mine. Must have actually lost a couple of the villages there. I believe he had 6, so I think that's 2 villages more of Borg's falling. Back down to 73 to 56, so it looks like Vindicator is getting villages again. And Vindicator just trying to find another opening. So he's going to try and attack in a couple of places while coming in through this side. Does manage to take out the storehouse, so that's a little bit of vision being denied, but it's nothing really in terms of economy at this stage of the game. But in the meanwhile, there's a good clump of villagers here, and there's a huge force of Vindicators. Not that far from them, Borg marking out the villagers just in time, but actually leaving them in front of the army there to tank a couple of extra hits, I think. So Vindicator has this big force right now. Borg has got his 3rd town centre up near the wall. I think he's going to send those extra gold gatherers over there to try and force it up just that little bit quicker, but Vindicator slipped a couple of his raiders up to try and get some more economic damage, sniping the market. Meanwhile, another good trade here from both players. Really, really good back and forth, guys. This is wonderful Age of Empires. So right now, Vindicator doing everything he can with his raiders just to slow down the Persian behemoth. Borg is just doing a wonderful game economically at the moment. He's still up by about 12 villages despite all of this raiding from Vindicator, who's just been relentless with the raiders. Time and time again, he's hit his opponent around the map, but seems to keep on coming. Borg, his score lead is still there, so he's got plenty in the bank, and Vindicator has taken the population lead again, but Borg is actually mixing in some of his own mounted archers now to try and slow down the raiders, try and deal a bit more damage around the map. He's going to try and take that distant gold mine again, and in the meantime, a lot of infantry, and they're backed up by a good number of skirmishers here, but they're mostly targeting a Sparabara there, not really doing much for it. But in the meantime, it's forcing Borg to keep all of his bowmen back because he doesn't want to overplay his hand here. Meantime, that Raider is going to fall. The cavalry 4. Borg not able to do a huge amount of damage in Vindicator's base, but they did force a good number of Raiders back, so that's really slowed down pressure over his side of the map. He hasn't really needed to worry about, say, doubling up or repairing his walls, but that's a big number of villages now that are going to get picked off by Vindicator, I think, if he's not careful, because there's a couple of mounted archers here. There's plenty of Asabara though, but a lot of these villages are going to fall in time, and in the meantime, Vindicator is preparing himself to try and pick this cavalry army off, while all the ranged are just sitting back at Borg's base. He doesn't really have much of a point though. He needs to leave something at home to defend here. It's been a really, really nice back and forth sort of game here, because Borg has been defending extremely well. But in saying that, Vindicator's pressure has been really, really good. A lot of villages for Borg being picked off by now, but Borg actually is walling up a good segment of the map right now, and Vindicator is going to find it tougher and tougher to deal damage around the map purely with his cavalry. And there's a big Persian force looking to flank round the outsides of the map, I think, and another big Persian cavalry force in the mid-map, but in the meantime, Vindicator is getting ready to engage on his opponent and has broken through on that distant gold mine while all of Borg's forces are so far out of position to actually defend against this. So I wonder if Borg's going to be able to deal the pressure to Vindicator to buy himself the time to recover in his gold economy. But likewise, I don't know whether Vindicator is going to have a huge amount of gold left at home himself. And this town centre here is in a really precarious spot. There's a lot of Asabara focusing it down. Most of the Persian army is here now. Meanwhile, the Norse army is just sort of sitting outside the Persian walls, not really dealing any damage at the moment. But some of the raiders are through. They are going to probably look to try and snipe houses and production facilities and workers. And one of the town centres for Vindicator actually falls right now. He doesn't actually have anything in his production queue. He's actually population capped again. So he's having to come back and try and defend against this, but there's a good amount of damage being dealt back in Borg's base. He's picking off a lot of villages, denying a lot of gathering time on those farms. But is he going to be able to recover in time? He's down at town centre now, so Borg is doing a wonderful job at returning the favour with all the pressure pushing. And there's just absolute carnage here in the mid-map. There's arrows flying everywhere. Do they even count when that happens? Jesus Christ, I can't even tell what's going on here. But it doesn't look too good for Vindicator, I don't think. There's not really a front line of any cavalry here left for him, so all the range is going to have free reign over all the infantry. And GG, Vindicator actually taps out. Wow, phenomenal stuff there, but particularly from Borg. Not to dismiss Vindicator because his rating was excellent, but it just didn't seem to be enough, and Borg, with absolutely perfect macro behind that, manages to survive, manages to hold on, turn the game around with his mounted archer and mounted archer bowman and Asabaras. And Vindicator's raiders unfortunately just come up short for him then. Borg with a wonderful job at really just slowly expanding, sort of having to play a bit of a slow turtley game in the start, but eventually turning it around, taking some beautiful fights, picking the town centre off, really setting Vindicator back, and GG guys. Absolutely Absolutely grand pressure game there from Vindicator, but yeah, just wasn't enough for him.